I just think self-awareness is the key to everything. It's the key to understanding ourselves. It's the key to knowing who we are. It's the key to having productive responses rather than unproductive reactions. It's the key to empathy. I have to be self-aware to give you empathy so that I don't insert myself into your story, so that I can stay outside of your story and just listen and reflect back to you. Self-awareness is the key to connection so that I can be aware of how I'm coming across to you, because I may be coming across as a tiger and I don't mean to, but if I don't have that self-awareness, I'm going to keep coming across as a tiger.
This is the Workplace Therapist Show. Of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and the entire purpose of the show is one singular thing, and that is to help you have better conversations and improve your relationships at work. That's really what we're focused on. And our topic today couldn't be more appropriate for the world we live in today. So we're going to talk about primarily anxiety and how we manage through anxiety and how that's impacting our relationships. But we're also going to pivot into vulnerability, something that you've heard me talk about on the show before, but I've got a fantastic expert. So joining us today, Mazi Robinson. Mazi.
Hi.
Really good to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And I'm really excited about particularly not only our topics today, but you bring slightly different lens. So often my guests will have kind of more of a workplace lens, maybe an HR person or a coach or a senior leader, and very kind of kindred spirit to me.
Yes.
You are a licensed counselor and speaker.
I am. Yes. I have been in the counseling profession for almost 15 years now. So a little bit. So yeah.
Okay, excellent. So we're going to talk about anxiety and vulnerability today, but before we do that, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you. So tell us a little more about that journey. What got you doing this? And tell us more about kind of your practice today.
Yes. So my journey into counseling has been a bit of a winding road. In another lifetime, I was a vocal performance major at Vanderbilt. And so what that means is that technically, I'm a classically trained lyric soprano. And what that means is that I sing a lot of Mozart.
Wow.
Or I did back in the day.
Wow.
And so in college, I suffered off and on with performance anxiety. It would kind of come and go. And I graduated from college, and then I went to get my master's in vocal performance at Florida State. And after my first semester, I came home at Christmas, and I was just a mess. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was burned out. I was just burned to a crisp. And so I told my parents, I said, I don't want to go back.
Oh, your eyes when you said it. I could see it in your eyes. You're like, no.
I don't want to go back. I want out of music, which this was a huge deal because I had been in music for 15 of my 22 years at that point and studying music very intensely all of that time. And so initially my parents said, well, we think you need to go back. And I was like, oh, okay. And so then a few days later, my dad comes home from work. I'm sitting in the living room. He comes home from work. He walks in the door and he said, I've been thinking about it. You have no marketable skills. I was like, I know. The world.
Oh, dad conversations.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
You can't make a living.
That's right. I was like, I know the world does not care that I can sing Mozart. It does not translate to a lot of things. And so he said, so you can come home, but you need to immediately figure out what you're going to do with your life. And I was like, okay, done. And so a few days later, I went back down to Tallahassee, withdrew from school, moved out of my apartment, came back to Atlanta, moved into an apartment, and enrolled at Oglethorpe University in their teaching certification program because I thought, what is the complete opposite of wanting to be an opera singer? A high school history teacher. I thought I will always be able to find a job. I will always be able to support myself, and I will have health insurance. And so I enrolled in their secondary social studies program. To become a high school history teacher, you essentially have to have the equivalent of a history major. So with my big fancy undergrad degree, I was essentially starting all over, just like 6 months after I'd graduated from college. So that was a sobering time for me. So in 10 days, I moved cities, moved apartments, started a new program, and ended a 4-year dating relationship. And so in 10 days, my entire life changed.
Full reset.
Just a full reset. Full reset. And at the end of that year, my advisor emailed me, and she said, I was looking through the classified. So that tells you how long ago this was, that somebody was actually looking through the classifieds for anything. And she said, I was looking through the classifieds, and I saw that Marist, which was a school in the area, they have an opening in the history department to start in January. Somebody's going on maternity leave. You should apply. You can practice interviewing. And I was like, yes, I should apply. I can practice answering questions. I had never had a real job before. So I applied, and they asked me to come in for an interview. And so I came in, and they asked me to come back and teach a class. I'd never taught a class a day in my life.
Wow.
And I taught on 19th century social movements. And then they asked me to come back and meet with Father Conzen, who is now Bishop Conzen. And I had never met a priest before. I'd never seen a priest before in person. And so and Father Conzen, Bishop Conzen, is the dearest man alive. He is just a wonderful man. And the whole time through the interview, I was just looking at him, just thinking, what is your life like? And where do you live? And who do you hang out with? And is that comfortable? Like, I was just so distracted by Father Conzen.
By the way, those who are listening, she went to the collar. Is that comfortable?
Right. And they offered me a job. And so I often say that Marist is one of the great evidences of grace in my life, because there's just absolutely no reason that a Southern Baptist born and raised vocal performance major with not a day of teaching experience should have gotten a job teaching history at one of the best Catholic high schools in the Southeast. So Marist changed my life, and I loved teaching at Marist. I loved the community. I loved my students. I taught 9th, 10th, and 11th grade history, so I was not much older than my students at the time. And so fast forward a few years, loving life, teaching. One day I was checking my email in between classes, and one of the school counselors emailed me, and she said, so-and-so is about to come into your class, and if he seems distracted, don't say anything, just let it go. His family is doing an intervention with his dad tonight, and his dad will either have to go to rehab or move out of the house. And my immediate thought was, this kid doesn't need to hear about World War II, which is what I was lecturing on that day. And my second thought was, I think that I could do more. And that was really, it was that singular moment that the idea of changing careers and becoming a counselor, it was that moment. And so I took the next school year, I continued working at Marist and teaching, but I took the next school year to really examine the counseling profession. I met with many different counselors in the area to just ask them what their work-life balance was. Are you sad all the time? Is it depressing? What's it like to be a counselor?
Totally.
Because I'm about to give up my really secure job because I had this moment reading
with health
an
benefits.
Email. With health benefits, right? And so at the end of the next school year, I left Marist and started grad school. And I knew all along that I wanted to specialize in working with women and addiction. And so throughout grad school, kind of everything I did centered around those two areas of specialty. I volunteered for a year at MAR, at their Women's Center, which is a treatment center for women up in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And that was an amazing educational, life-changing experience. I interned at MAR and then at a church in Marietta. And then after grad school, I worked for a short time at Ridgeview on their adult addiction unit. And
which I have worked at as well.
Yes, so we share that in common.
And as well as Vanderbilt undergraduate degrees.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, just same. And then after I worked there for a short time, I worked at a counseling center in Buckhead for 6 years. And then in 2013, I took my kind of next leap of faith and courage, and I left my job and I started my own private practice. And that has just been one of the best decisions. I have enjoyed the adventure of being my own boss and being self-employed and having my practice and growing this business.
Paying for your own health benefits.
That's right. I'm paying for my own now. And it has just been a wonderful, wonderful experience. So now I specialize in working with women on self-worth, self-esteem challenges, relationship concerns, and life stage transitions. I see women across the lifespan, but primarily my practice is late 20s to women in their late 50s, and then I also get to.
So that's a pretty big. That's a late 20s to early 50s. Is that what you said?
I mean, late 50s.
Late 50s.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a 30-year kind of a span.
So yes, so I am honored in that I get to walk with women kind of through young adulthood and on into midlife. And so those are the kind of big life stages that I focus on in my practice. And then I get to do a lot of speaking, which I feel so grateful for because it scratches that itch from teaching back in the day. And so that's a little bit about how I got here
Great story.
and my practice.
That's fantastic.
So I often tell young people, it really doesn't matter what you major in. I'm a counselor, and I majored in voice.
Yeah, that's fair. It's totally fair.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting here you talk about kind of the life stages you work with.
Yeah.
The Brookings Institute, this was a few years ago, they did a happiness study across the globe. And they looked at happiness, and they kind of charted it.
Yeah.
And they said, around 1920, it's pretty good. And then in your early 20s, it starts to drop, and it precipitously drops until about 43, and that's the rock bottom. And then it starts to make a little turn,
Yeah.
and then it, so you're really helping people in the trough.
Yes, and it is a trough. It is.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, that research truly does bear out in real life that there is a dip as you move into those late 30 years and into those 40s, and then moving. Once you get into the 50s and 60s, there's just a real worldview shift. There's a responsibility shift in life, and it results in a happiness shift. But there is a trough. It's real.
Yeah. The one thing I disagreed with the happiness curve is they have it just going up and up and up in perpetuity. And when I've talked to folks, kind of in later season of their life, they're like, yeah, when you get in your kind of late 70s, early 80s, it starts to drop off because your body just does not cooperate with you.
Right. Right. And so there isn't, I don't think we ever reach the mountaintop of bliss.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. It does tend to drop off. And then, although this is incredibly morbid and a downer, but I think as people age and their friends and loved ones do not, that sense of everyone I loved is dying around me, but I'm still here, I think that definitely adds to that dip later on.
Yeah. So let's just go ahead and tie right into that and talk about anxiety.
Okay, great.
Perfect pivot. So let's talk about anxiety.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of open it by saying, gosh, it feels like we're just in kind of this anxiety cloud right now. And I experience it with my clients in their workplaces. I experience it when I'm driving on the road in the way people are driving and operating with others.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about kind of what you're seeing. What are some of the things that you're seeing and noticing? And what are some of the ways that you're helping people cope with that?
Yes. So anxiety is real right now. We are all anxious. Even the most zen of us are feeling that anxiety right now. And one of the things that I've really been trying to emphasize to my clients and people that I've been speaking with is that if you are feeling anxious, that is normal. Because I think what can happen is people can feel anxious about their anxiety and they're like, oh, something's wrong with me. I'm experiencing anxiety, because I think in recent years we have been sold a bill of goods that anxiety is bad and wrong, and you're clearly doing something wrong in life if you're feeling anxious. But that could not be farther from the truth. Anxiety is uncomfortable, for sure, but it is not bad. And in fact, some level of anxiety is good in our lives. And I'll get to that in just a second. But we're anxious right now because this is an anxiety-inducing situation. We are living in something that we've never had to live through before, a global pandemic. We're living in something that there is no end date. Our brains are wired for a finish line. Like, I can do anything if you just tell me how long I have to do it, right?
Yeah.
But nobody's telling me how long I have to do this. And so there's no finish line. The rules keep changing. There's a lot of conflict and tension just all around us about many different things right now. Everything that we are living in is anxiety inducing. And so to feel anxious is a normal, healthy response. It says, I'm awake in life and I'm aware of what's going on. To feel numb would mean that or to not feel anxious would mean that you are numb. And although numb is what I think a lot of people think they want to be, it is not our best state of being. This whole idea of anxiety is uncomfortable, but anxiety is not necessarily bad. And anxiety is actually a sign that we're awake and aware in our lives. You have to think about, well, what is our brain's one job? Like every organ in the body has a job, right? Our brain's one job is to keep us alive. And it does that by constantly assessing our environment to see if we're in danger. Are we okay? Are we in danger? Where are the tigers? What do we need to do in order to survive? The problem is our brains see danger as a very black and white thing. I'm either okay or I'm in danger. There's not a lot of gray. We have to teach our brains the gray because our brains see danger as black and white. And so if your brain senses that you are in danger, if your brain senses that your security is at threat, if your brain senses any uncertainty, because our brains register uncertainty as a threat, as a tiger, if you will, then our brain is going to send us into this anxiety response, into fight or flight mode. And so adrenaline's going to start pumping through our veins, and we're going to stop digesting food in a normal way because our brains don't need to, or our bodies don't need to waste energy digesting the hamburger if you need to run from the tiger, right? And our blood pressure increases and our blood sugar increases, and all these things start happening physically. Cognitively, our thinking changes. When we are in this anxiety response, fight or flight mode, it is harder for us to focus. It's harder for us to think long term. It's harder for us to make decisions because, again, your brain thinks that you need to survive. So do you really need to remember what you were going to the grocery store for? No, because your brain thinks there's a tiger trying to attack you. And so trying to remember that you needed, paper towels is not a priority in our thinking. And so I think that it can be really helpful for us to just understand that physical cognitive response to that anxiety response, because I think a lot of people get anxious about their symptoms, like, oh my goodness, I'm having all these stomach aches during COVID. Do I have stomach cancer? No, you probably don't have stomach cancer, but your body isn't digesting food the way it was pre-COVID because you're living in a constant anxiety response.
So I want to take us into break. When we come back, I want to talk a little about some of the other ways that are triggering kind of anxiety.
Yeah.
And then how we might be able to kind of push through that or overcome that or at least maybe manage it or something to make it quieter a little bit. I think that's probably a good outcome.
Yeah.
Okay, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for listening to the show. In case you haven't heard, Brandon's got a new book out. He's going to tell you all about it.
Thanks, Emily. So the book is The Hot Sauce Principle, How to Live and Lead in a World Where Everything is Urgent All the Time. And if you're like me, and like most of us, everything does feel urgent all the time. It's like hot sauce is being poured on everything, whether it's our work life, our family life, coming from our clients, coming from our boss. And so the book is a practical guide on how do we manage urgency. Not only how do we set proper boundaries, but how do we properly create urgency when we need to. So I wrote the book for you. I can't wait for you to get a copy.
Thanks, Brandon. Don't forget to check out The Hot Sauce Principle, available now on Amazon.com. Back to the show.
Welcome back from break. Of course, this is the Workplace Therapist Show. And so right before this, Mazi Robinson was talking to us about anxiety, and you painted such a real picture about all the things that make us more anxious right now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of wear kind of one of my kind of, I don't know what we call it, faculty hats, whatever. When I often would teach classes on leadership communication, one of the principles that I teach and still continue to teach is in absence of communication, people tend to assume the worst.
Yes. Yes.
So I think this is a good time where it's, where our brain is seeing a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
And so to your point, they're kind of translating it into tigers and other things.
Yes.
So what I was curious about is, and this may actually, I have a feeling this is going to eventually dovetail into vulnerability in a little bit, help us understand why we are seeing all these stories about people absolutely losing their mind in public. I mean, just like screaming, yelling, doing horrible things, punching people in the nose. I mean, just really just losing it.
Yes. That is such a great observation, because we do seem to just be off the chain when it comes to our responses. Like right now, we are reacting, and there are a number of reasons for that. One, when we are living in an anxiety state, as we all are right now, that's our state of mind right now. We become hyper vigilant because our mind thinks that we need to find more tigers. So we're constantly looking for whatever else is going to threaten us. And so it's almost like we're just primed. We're just primed to be threatened. And so when somebody cuts in line in front of us at Publix, they were threatening my time, my ability to be the next person at the checkout. And so everything is feeling like a threat right now because we're living in this anxiety response. The other piece to it is that for a lot of us, when we are feeling anxious, our anxiety manifests in other emotional responses. And the most common emotional response is anger. Mm-hmm. And the reason for this is because anxiety is an uncomfortable emotional experience. It is a normal emotional experience, and every human experiences anxiety. It's not a weakness. You're not mentally weak because you're anxious. You're human. But it's a very uncomfortable emotional experience, and it's a vulnerable emotional experience, because when we're feeling anxious, we feel vulnerable, we feel exposed, we're wrestling with uncertainty, we're feeling at risk in some way, and so we feel vulnerable. And so what happens is we armor up when we're feeling anxious. And so for a lot of us, our anxiety manifests in anger, frustration, impatience. I'm feeling vulnerable. You're not going to cut in line in front of me. Get back to the back. We're going to armor up and we're going to charge ahead and fight this perceived tiger in front of us, instead of taking moments throughout the day and checking in with ourselves and developing that self-awareness, that emotional curiosity, and going, how am I feeling right now? I'm feeling really angry that this person cut in line in front of me at Publix. Okay, I know that anger is a secondary emotion, and so there's always something underneath anger. And so let me practice a pause and figure out, okay, am I sad? Am I hurt because this person cut in line in front of me? Am I feeling threatened, anxious, fearful because this person cut in line in front of me? Or am I feeling shame? Am I feeling less than? Those are kind of the three emotional responses under anger. And so then when we do that, then we can get to the root of the emotion and identify, okay, right now I'm feeling really anxious. And so I have a choice I can either react and I can go off on this person, I can lash out, I can project all that I'm feeling onto this person, or I can choose to respond.
Yeah, so one more thing I want to add to this. So it reminds me of something a mentor of mine said years ago to me, and it's always stuck with me. He said, anger always is protecting something tender.
Yeah.
There's always something really tender. Yeah. And so when you see somebody angry, there's something tender that they're protecting. They've got their armor on and they're smacking you with a club because they don't want to get hurt. I think there's one more thing that I would kind of add to the mix. I think what also makes this so challenging is that that going back to uncertainty, no one's really exactly clear on what the right answer is, quote unquote. Mask or no mask. Right. I'm going to get it. I'm not going to get it. I'm going to die. I'm not going to die. And then you throw in media, and media is all op-ed at this point. They all have a political agenda. And so you're not getting real news. You're getting different flavors. So what that forces us to do is create our own individualized philosophy about how the world's supposed to operate right now. Yeah. And if you don't comply with my philosophy, then
you're a tiger.
You're a tiger, exactly.
Yeah.
And some philosophies are, you should just be out and about and ignore the whole thing. Other philosophies are, you should stay inside, wear a mask, and then wear a mask on your mask, and then wear a mask on your mask on your mask, and wipe down all your stuff, even though no one's been in your house in 6 months.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of different, and so if you violate my philosophy, you're a tiger, I'm going to punch you in the nose.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. You are so correct, because it all goes back to the story that we tell ourselves, because, and it goes back to our brains seeing uncertainty as a threat, as a tiger. And so what does our brain do when it senses uncertainty? It tries to create certainty.
Yeah.
And so our brains write stories, and our brains love an ending. So our brain's going to write a story with an ending. Now, the story may not be true. It may not be based in any sort of accuracy, but I've determined that you are trying to steal time from me. You're trying to steal my place in the Publix checkout line, and I will destroy you
Yep.
now.
Yeah. I would always say, I've encountered parenting philosophy is kind of like a religion. Everybody has their own.
Yes.
And if you try and like poke on their religion, they will punch you in the nose because they're working really hard at their parenting philosophy, whether you think it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
I think people's COVID philosophy is also like a religion. Yes. It's like you can't really argue with somebody if they're holding one of these stances. You're not going to win.
Right.
And yet we still want to convert people to our religion.
That's so true.
So it's
so true.
It's quite a messy time.
It is. It's a very messy time. And it all goes back to because we all feel so vulnerable. Because we are scared, and some of us are more comfortable admitting that and sitting in that, and some of us feel the need subconsciously or consciously to mask up and armor up. But it's a very vulnerable time for all the reasons that we've said, the uncertainty, the conflict that we're surrounded with, just the life and death fear.
Yeah. So let's, you're such a pro. We're going to pivot into vulnerability.
Okay.
So let's talk a little about, I think we've laid out a lot, and you've really painted a beautiful picture of what's going on for us right now. And so I'm imagining myself as a listener. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. What do I do?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do in this?
Yes.
So what do we do?
Yes. So what we want to do is, and yes, we want to practice the self-care that we keep hearing about walks and getting outside and the fresh air is good and all that sort of thing. But what we want to do is to really lean into what we're feeling. And what I mean by that is to really use this opportunity to develop some self-awareness and, like I said earlier, some emotional curiosity, because life is providing us a lot of opportunity to feel a lot of things. And feelings are a messenger. Feelings are always trying to tell us something, and feelings will control us, or we can manage and control our feelings. And when I say manage and control our feelings, I don't mean stuff and numb our feelings. I mean understand our feelings and then choose to respond accordingly. And so it really is taking those moments of going, whoo, right now I am really angry. What is going on? Let me get curious. And notice I say, let me get curious. We don't want to judge ourselves for feeling angry. Like, what's wrong with me that I'm so angry? I'm just, COVID's turning me into this horrible person, So it's not that. It's what is going on? Let me get curious about why I'm so angry right now. Very objective, just curious. And then identify I'm feeling angry. What else am I feeling? I'm feeling very stressed. I'm feeling very anxious. I haven't been back to my office in months. I don't know what's happening with work. Virtual school is not what I wanted, so there's grief and loss there. I'm afraid for my kids, how this is going to impact them long term. Are they going to be the COVID generation? And what's that going to look like when they're 43 and they hit the trough, right? And so just to uncover and identify all of those feelings, and then to find a way to express them, to have a safe person that you can talk to, send a text, hey, I'm having a really rough day. You don't necessarily need to explain and to go into it, but to just name it and claim it and express it and have someone that you can dialogue with about it, to journal. But we want to identify our feelings, understand where they're coming from, and then express them, release them, because stuffed feelings, they eventually come out, and they will come out in the form of rage. They'll come out in the form of panic attacks. They'll come out in the form of headaches and insomnia. So we don't always get to choose what we feel, but we can choose how we release the feeling. And so COVID is really an opportunity to develop some really powerful and life-changing life skills when it comes to emotional awareness.
Okay, I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you sure?
I'm ready.
It's a really good curveball.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So, I hear you 100%. What if we're in a situation where we don't have anybody to share those with? Or the people that are in our circle are feeling the same kind of freaked out. So we don't want to, either we don't want to put our burden on them because that's our self-talk, right? Or we think, oh my gosh, I don't know if they're in a place where they can respond positively without sharing with me their religion, right? Which was a natural reaction. Well, if you just believe my religion, then you'll be okay.
Right.
So what do we do if we don't feel like we have a healthy outlet? Are there other options for us?
Yes, there are. So a couple of things come to mind. We may be in a situation where we don't have emotionally safe people to share with. And so in those situations, I think it can be really helpful to begin a counseling relationship because that person is objective. They're not in your daily life. They are an emotionally safe person. And the one benefit to COVID is every therapist in America is virtual right now. So, you can hop on a Zoom and have a therapy session. You don't have to worry about traffic or
companies
schedule.
Companies are quick to support that right now.
Yes.
Quick to support that.
Yes, because we need that extra support right now. The other thing that I would say is in situations, marriages, workplaces, friendships, let's try to cultivate emotional safety right now. And how we do that is by practicing empathy with one another. So if you and I work together and you start sharing with me like just how stressed you are and what a bad day and stuff at home and virtual school and the business and blah, 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 rather than me trying to one-up you with my level of stress or coming back at you with, well, you just need to stop wearing a mask and just live your life or whatever it is. What if I gave you empathy? Man, I know you're having a hard day. It's just some days are just so hard. And then you receive empathy. You feel seen and heard. And then you want to give me empathy and we create connection.
Okay, let's be a little more prescriptive. You and I both have counseling degrees. We know exactly what you just did right there. It was beautiful. So if someone doesn't have a counseling degree, which is probably everybody listening to this, what did you do right there?
What did I do right there?
Yeah, so the way you responded, that you said it was empathy. Be a little more prescriptive to someone who's listening.
Yes.
How can they display empathy?
Yes. Okay, great question. Because I think empathy is a word we're hearing more in recent years, but we don't always know what it means. So empathy is the learned ability. It is not natural. We have to learn it. It is the learned ability to come alongside someone else's emotional experience. You don't have to feel what they're feeling. You don't have to agree with what they're feeling or agree with their perception, but you hear their feeling and you reflect it back to them. I hear that you're stressed today. It is a stressful time. I'm sorry you're so stressed today. It is hearing what someone's saying, affirming it, and reflecting it back to them. It's not trying to fix them. It's not giving them a solution. Well, have you thought about talking to your boss about blah, blah? Because when people try to fix us, what happens is we feel dismissed. And then if we're already feeling irritated, we're going to feel more irritated.
Yep. And here's a great analogy of that. If you've ever been on a call with someone and you're getting upset and they say, well, you just need to calm down. What's our first reaction? No, you're not hearing my emotion. Let me really let you hear my emotion.
Right.
We'll turn up the volume on that, right? So I love what you said about reflecting that back. And I would also add one more little tactical tip. If you want to go empathy kind of 2.0, you can say, wow, that must really be hard.
Yeah.
And then use the classic therapist line. Tell me more about that.
Yes.
And then just sit back and listen.
Yes, exactly.
And in the history of that phrase, there's never been a case where someone said, nah, I don't have anything else.
That's so true.
That's it. I know. I'm done.
That's so true.
They will always tell you more about that. And then they'll feel heard and listened and validated.
Yes.
Because that's really what we're trying to give people. And their anxiety will drop. The more we feel validated and heard, it's like a little anxiety meter. It's
Exactly.
down.
Exactly. I mean, you said it so well. The more we feel heard, the less anxious we feel, and we create that emotional safety. We create healthier connections. Because right now, particularly if you're married and living with your spouse and your family, you're with people all the time. And I don't think we were designed for 24/7 marriage. Like, hunters, gatherers, just that implies that people were leaving for the day, right? But that's not our reality. And so we have to be intentional about cultivating these emotionally safe spaces for connection because we don't know how much longer this is going to last. And so just continuing to project your anxiety and your frustration out on those that you work with or those that you live with, it just simply isn't productive.
Yeah.
And so practicing that empathy.
We didn't even get to really talking about some of the Brene Brown work that,
Yes.
That's going to be another show.
Yeah, okay.
You're going to have to come back.
That sounds great.
So,
I love it.
I ask all my guests this question as we're kind of nearing the close. So any kind of life hack you might have for how we could have better relationships or conversations, either at work or at home?
Yes. And so I'm going to repeat something that I've already said.
Please
I'm
do.
sorry I'm not more creative.
Totally great.
But I really think it's self-awareness. I just think self-awareness is the key to everything. It's the key to understanding ourselves. It's the key to knowing who we are. It's the key to having productive responses rather than unproductive reactions. It's the key to empathy. I have to be self-aware to give you empathy so that I don't insert myself into your story, so that I can stay outside of your story and just listen and reflect back to you. Self-awareness is the key to connection so that I can be aware of how I'm coming across to you, because I may be coming across as a tiger and I don't mean to, but if I don't have that self-awareness, I'm going to keep coming across as a tiger. And so I really think that self-awareness piece of understanding what we're feeling, how we're thinking, and what we're doing with our behaviors is really the key to so much in our lives.
Yeah, beautiful. We just have to take a moment to stop and
that pause.
Process.
Yeah.
So if people want to learn more about you
Yes.
and the great work you're doing, where can they go?
Yes. Well, they can go to my website, mazirobinson.com. You can also...
And it's M-A-Z-I.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Just like it sounds.
Just like it sounds.
.com. Okay.
That's right. You can also go to my practice website, cultivateatlanta.com. Cultivate is a counseling center and also a gathering. We hold bi-monthly gatherings for women. We have now pivoted online. Our next gathering will be the 1st of October. I think we've decided on October 1st.
Do you take clients outside of the Atlanta region?
We take clients outside of Atlanta. We can't take clients outside of Georgia because of ethics and licensing issues. You can only see clients in the states that you're licensed in.
Yep.
But yes, we are taking virtual clients all over the state. And so cultivateatlanta.com, you can learn about our counseling center and our gatherings. If you would like to follow me on Facebook or Instagram, my handle is Cultivate Atlanta, and I post daily psycho ed stuff, inspirational stuff. Sometimes I try to be funny. But yes, those are all the places you can find me.
That's fantastic. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm already looking forward to having you back on.
Oh, well, this has been so much fun.
This will be great.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening and watching. And of course, keep up the fight every week as we try and not only eliminate dysfunction in our lives, but have those healthier, better relationships and conversations. You can, if you're not already listening to us on iTunes, why aren't you? You should totally listen to us. And if you are listening, which I hope you are, please rate and review the show. That's how more people find about us and hear about the great work that we're trying to do to make our world and workplaces and even our lives healthier and better. And of course, you can go to my site, theworkplacetherapist.com, for blogs, other resources. And if you haven't heard about my new book, The Hot Sauce Principle, please check it out. It's all about how we live and lead in a world where everything is urgent all the time, which is kind of what we talked about today. So until our next show, have a great week and an awesome life.